My parents gave my sister a dream home for her birthday. This will make your marriage perfect, my mother said. But on my birthday, I got a worn-out cleaning set and a name tag that said servant. My father laughed. What's wrong? You're just the family maid. I packed my bags and left. Days later, my parents called in a panic. Where are you? Come back. Sarah Thompson gazed at the morning sunlight streaming through the window as she got up early, as usual, and began preparing breakfast. Her efficiency was the result of 36 years of practice. There was no wasted motion as she cracked eggs, brewed coffee, and toasted bread. The small town of Oak Hill, Pennsylvania, where the Thompson family lived, was a place where one could clearly feel the changing of seasons. Johnson Accounting, where Sarah worked, was a small accounting firm in the center of town. She had worked there for over 10 years and earned her boss's trust through her meticulousness and sense of responsibility. Sarah, is the coffee ready? Her father, Robert, came downstairs with a newspaper in hand. It had been several years since he retired from the local manufacturing company, but his morning routine remained unchanged. The newspaper and coffee marked the beginning of his day. Yes, it's ready. Sarah smiled as she handed him a mug. I put just a little sugar in it. Robert took the cup without saying anything and sat down in his usual chair. He took Sarah's thoughtfulness for granted and rarely expressed words of gratitude. Margaret's footsteps could be heard in the kitchen. Sarah's mother's interest in fashion never waned. This morning, too, she appeared with perfect makeup and in elegant yet casual clothing. Good morning! It's French toast this morning, Sarah said, to which Margaret merely nodded briefly before changing the subject. I heard from Emily. She says she'll be late today because she has dinner with James's parents. Sarah nodded silently. Her mother's voice always softened when Emily became the topic of conversation. Emily was a special presence in the family and worked as an assistant manager at a high-end boutique called Elite Style. But her real job seemed to be preparing for marriage to James Carter, who came from one of the wealthiest families in town. That's lovely, Sarah replied while arranging the plates. James's parents are always so generous to her. Of course, Margaret said, taking a sip of hot coffee. The Thompson family jewel is marrying into the Carter family. You know how much influence their real estate company has in this town. Sarah continued cooking in silence. She had a boyfriend, Michael Davis, but her family rarely talked about him. Michael was a gentleman who worked at the town library and cherished Sarah, but in the Thompson family's eyes, he was considered to lack ambition. With breakfast ready, Sarah took her plate and joined the family. The conversation was dominated by Emily's wedding preparations and talk about James's family. Sarah occasionally nodded while mentally organizing her schedule for the day. After work, she wanted to do some shopping, prepare dinner, do the laundry, and hopefully find a little time to talk with Michael on the phone. Sarah, what's for dinner tonight? Her father asked abruptly. Chicken casserole. I told you yesterday, Sarah answered patiently. Ah, that's right. Robert returned to his newspaper. And make sure you take care of the garden soon. Sarah nodded quietly. By choosing to continue living at home after college graduation, there was an implicit understanding that she would be responsible for all household chores. What she had initially thought would be temporary had somehow become a permanent role. While clearing up after breakfast, Sarah noticed the Henderson couple from next door through the window. They were heading out for their morning walk, and the sight of them holding hands was impressive. Would she and Michael ever be like that? While imagining this, Sarah was pulled back to reality. Sarah, are the preparations for Emily's birthday party this weekend all right? Her mother asked. I'm counting on you for the cake order and decorations. Don't worry, Sarah answered with a smile. Everything's already arranged. Margaret nodded with relief. With Sarah around, family events always proceeded smoothly. Sometimes it felt like that was her purpose in life, the family's unsung hero, someone everyone took for granted. Sarah looked at the clock and hurriedly grabbed her bag. I have to go. I have audit preparations today. Her parents merely waved lightly as Sarah left the house. Getting into her car, she exhaled deeply. Her life always seemed to revolve around others, but she told herself that's what family was about. She hoped that someday her dedication would be recognized. Emily's birthday was to be celebrated at Le Chateau, the finest restaurant in Oak Hill. While remembering that her own birthday had been modestly celebrated at a local family restaurant, Sarah perfectly prepared everything from the restaurant table, and the soft candlelight gently illuminated their faces. "Thank you, Papa," Emily responded with a smile, tucking her glossy black hair behind her ear. Her dress appeared to be designer and fit her slim figure perfectly. The diamond on her engagement ring sparkled in the light. Sarah smiled quietly and took a sip of champagne. She was wearing a simple beige dress, but her mother had told her, "Why don't you dress up a little more?" "Now it's time for a gift worthy of this special day," Margaret said in an excited voice. She took out a large envelope from her handbag and handed it to Emily. "What's this?" Emily received the envelope with a curious expression. Carefully opening it, she found documents and a small box inside. When she opened the box, a shiny silver key appeared. "This is..." Emily's eyes widened. She looked through the documents and took on an expression of disbelief. "A deed to a house?" "Yes," Margaret said in an exalted voice. "It's a house in the new Maple Hill subdivision, a lovely home with 3 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, and an open kitchen." Robert proudly puffed out his chest. "Our family jewel deserves the finest jewelry box. We discussed it with James's parents, wanting to give something as a wedding gift. They provided the land and we provided the building." Emily was speechless and rushed to hug her parents. "I can't believe it. Thank you, really. Thank you so much. This will make for a happy marriage," her mother said with satisfaction. "The location is perfect, too. It's close to James's parents' house, which will be convenient when they help with your children." Sarah sat quietly, remembering her own 30th birthday 7 years ago. Nothing special happened. She just bought a cake on her way home from work, and the family ate it together. She tried not to feel disappointed at the time, but now that memory came back vividly. "Sarah, don't you have anything to say?" Margaret prompted. Sarah came back to herself and put on her biggest smile. "Congratulations, Emily. That's a wonderful gift. It's going to be a beautiful home." Emily nodded happily. "I want your advice on the interior. You have such good taste." "Of course," Sarah replied, although complex emotions were swirling inside her. She had no intention of showing them. A week later, Sarah's birthday arrived. The Thompson family decided to have dinner at Oak Hill Diner in the center of town on a busy Friday evening filled with families. They were led to a small table by the window. "Happy birthday, Sarah," Michael said with a gentle smile. He had been specially invited for this day. "Thank you," Sarah replied happily, placing her hand on Michael's. She felt a sense of security in his warmth. Robert and Margaret were dressed a little more formally than usual, but the place was clearly a different class from last week's restaurant. Nevertheless, Sarah was grateful that her family had gathered for her. "Now, Sarah," Margaret said as dinner was drawing to a close, "we've prepared something special for you, too." Sarah's heart beat a little faster. Her parents handed her a large box. The wrapping paper was simple, but the ribbon was neatly tied. What could it be? Sarah opened the box with some expectation. The first thing she saw were a rather used duster and sponge. Looking further into the box, she found an old brush, cleaning supplies, and, most shockingly, a nameplate with servant handwritten on it. A moment of silence fell. Sarah's expression froze. "What? Not happy?" Robert suddenly burst into loud laughter. "You're the family servant, aren't you?" Margaret also laughed, making an excuse-like comment. "It's a joke, just a joke. But since you're so good at housework, we thought this would be most useful." Emily laughed uncomfortably, crossing her legs under the table. "Don't mind them. It's just Mom and Dad's joke." Sarah heard something breaking deep inside her. It was the sound of hope, shattering hope she had kept deep in her heart for years. The wish to be cherished by her family, to be recognized, to be treated equally, broken to pieces before her eyes. Still, she put on a fake smile. Yes, very practical. Thank you. An expression of anger appeared on Michael's face, but when Sarah lightly squeezed his arm, he restrained himself. There's a real present, too. Margaret held out a small box. Inside was a department store gift card. The amount was a fraction of what her sister's birthday gift had cost. Thank you, Sarah said quietly. After returning home, Sarah shut herself in her room, gazing at the moonlight outside her window. For the first time in her life, she seriously questioned herself. How much meaning was there in continuing to live for her family? When morning came, a new determination shone in Sarah's eyes. She quietly began packing. She stuffed only the minimum necessary clothes and mementos into a single suitcase. After sending a short message to Michael, she left a letter on the kitchen table. I'm going to find my own life. Goodbye. With just that written, Sarah left the house. She didn't look back. The apartment Sarah arrived at was on the 3rd floor of an old building on the opposite side of town. It was a property managed by Michael's friend, who kindly accepted her sudden move in. From the window, she could see a small park in Oak Hill, and the morning sun brightly lit the room. The furniture was minimal, but this was her new place. Are you sure this is okay? Michael asked, not hiding his concern. He placed the heavy suitcase next to the bed. We could look for a better place. Sarah stood by the window and took a deep breath. This is enough. Just having a place of my own makes me feel free. Michael placed his hand on her shoulder. Your family must be worried. I'm sure they are. Sarah turned and smiled. But now I want to think about myself. For 36 years, I've always lived for someone else. He gently embraced Sarah. I'm by your side no matter what. That evening, Sarah's mobile phone began to ring. It was a call from her mother. She ignored the phone and quietly picked up her teacup. She had decided that the first step in her new life was to stand by her choices. At the Thompson house, Sarah's absence immediately began to have an impact. It's already 8. Sarah usually has breakfast ready by this time. Margaret looked around the empty kitchen and complained. When she opened the refrigerator, there were no prepared ingredients, and the coffee maker remained empty. Robert came downstairs with his newspaper as usual, but noticed the absence of the usual morning aroma. Where is Sarah? Margaret shrugged. I went to her room, but she wasn't there. There was just a letter. She pointed to the piece of paper on the kitchen table. Robert picked it up and read the short text. What is this, a joke? His face turned red. Did she really leave? It's probably just a whim, Margaret said, but her voice trembled slightly. She'll be back by evening. Come on, I need to make breakfast. But after she burned the bread and broke too many eggs, the couple gave up on breakfast and headed to a nearby cafe. Emily stopped by her parents' house that afternoon. Sarah isn't answering her phone. What's going on? She left, it seems, Robert answered grumpily. Doing whatever she pleases. Emily looked at her parents with a surprised expression. Is she angry about the birthday present? I think that was really thoughtless. That was a joke. Margaret made an excuse. Sarah has always understood our jokes. But that wasn't a joke, was it? Emily unusually contradicted her parents. You two really have been treating Sarah like a servant. Be quiet, Robert's voice was sharp. Sarah will come back soon. She'll remember her responsibilities to the family. But Sarah didn't return. She focused on her work at Johnson Accounting and made a new proposal to her boss, Laura Johnson. I believe if we improve this customer management system, efficiency will increase by 20%, Sarah explained confidently. Laura nodded with an impressed expression. That's a wonderful idea, Sarah. You've become very proactive lately. I'm trying to have a new perspective. Sarah smiled gently. In the evening, while having dinner with Michael at a small restaurant, Sarah felt a change in her heart. It's strange. It's only been a week since I left home, but I feel so much lighter. Michael took her hand. You have the right to live your own life. Aren't you worried about your family? Sarah thought for a moment before answering. I am worried, especially since my father can't cook and my mother hates cleaning. But she took a breath. This is something I had to do for myself. At the Thompson house, the situation was deteriorating with each passing day. Laundry piled up, and meals relied on delivery or pre-cooked foods. Robert's irritation grew, and Margaret was overwhelmed by the complexity of housework. "Why is there no toilet paper?" Robert yelled. "I wrote it on the shopping list," Margaret responded in a tired voice. "It was your turn to go shopping." "Me? I don't remember being told that," Robert argued. Such small disputes became daily occurrences, and the atmosphere in the house grew heavy. Meanwhile, Emily was busy with preparations for her new home and wedding plans. But Sarah's absence affected that too. She was supposed to talk with a wedding planner. Emily complained to her fiancé, James. "Sarah always makes perfect plans down to the details." James frowned. "Why rely on your sister for your own wedding?" Emily struggled to answer. "Because Sarah always..." She lost her words. Indeed, she had always relied on her sister, from school projects to job interview preparations, and now even her wedding. 2 weeks passed, and Sarah was entrusted with important projects at Johnson Accounting. Her proposals were adopted, and the implementation of the new system had begun. "Sarah, at this rate, a promotion might be in your future," Laura quietly conveyed after a meeting. Sarah's eyes sparkled. "Thank you." "I'll do my best." Her apartment was gradually taking on her personality. Michael had brought an old bookshelf, and she was slowly gathering plants and small decorative items. On weekends, she sometimes enjoyed short trips to the suburbs with Michael. One day, a message arrived from Emily. "Sarah, I need to talk to you. Can we meet?" After thinking for a long time, Sarah replied, "I need time right now. I'll keep in touch, so don't worry." She wasn't ready to face her family yet. It would take a little more time to sort out the emotions that had been suppressed for 36 years. Emily's wedding was approaching in 2 weeks. The Thompson family was busy with preparations, and in the midst of chaos, the invitation responses haven't been organized, Margaret said in a panic. "If Sarah were here, this wouldn't." "Don't mention Sarah's name anymore," Robert said in a harsh tone. His pride was deeply wounded. She made her choice. However, whether they wanted to admit it or not, Sarah's absence left a huge hole. They were now painfully aware of the importance of the countless tasks she had taken for granted. The day before the wedding, Emily had just finished her final fitting at the bridal shop. The dress was beautiful, but there was anxiety on her face. "What's wrong?" James's mother asked. "Tomorrow is a special day. You should look happier." Emily smiled weakly. "My sister isn't coming. I wanted to prepare with her." "Your sister is very irresponsible." James's mother sighed. To abandon her family like that. Emily wanted to object but couldn't find the words. The answer to who had truly abandoned whom was beginning to become clear in the depths of her heart. On the wedding day, Oak Hill Country Club was elegantly decorated, but behind the scenes was chaos. There were mistakes in the flower arrangements, errors in the seating chart, and small mistakes were accumulating. "This wasn't how it was supposed to be," Emily said, tearing up. Her makeup was starting to smudge. Although the ceremony somehow began, the imperfections in the details earned stern looks from James's parents. "The Thompson family can't pay attention to details," could be heard in whispers. Meanwhile, Sarah and Michael were spending that weekend at a lakeside cottage, enjoying a relaxed time. "Today is my sister's wedding," Sarah said, gazing at the lake. "Do you regret it?" Michael gently asked. Sarah shook her head. "No. It's a little sad, but this is my choice." There was a new strength in her voice. "I have the right to be happy too." One afternoon, a month after the wedding, Sarah was compiling quarterly reports at the office. Over the past few weeks, she had begun to emerge as a core member of the company, and clients' trust in her had deepened. While concentrating on her work, her mobile phone began to vibrate. Looking at the screen, she saw an unusual call from her father. Sarah hesitated for a moment, but eventually took a deep breath and answered the phone. "Hello, Sarah." Her father's voice was not his usual dignified tone, but filled with panic and confusion. "Where are you? Come back!" "What's wrong, Papa?" Sarah asked calmly. She had never heard her father so distraught. "Something terrible has happened. Emily and James had a big fight, and it's even involving Mr. and Mrs. Carter." Robert's voice broke off. "Anyway, we need help right now." Sarah sat deeply in her chair. "What exactly happened? It's about Emily's house. She can't do any housework or cooking." When James's mother visited and the house was a mess, her father's hesitant voice conveyed the seriousness of the situation. "They're criticizing Emily as a woman who can't even do housework. Though they've been married for less than a month, it's already on the verge of collapse." Sarah frowned. "And what do you want me to do?" "I want you to help teach Emily how to do housework." Robert lowered his voice. "And actually, we're struggling too. The house isn't functioning well." After a moment of silence, Sarah quietly said, "I understand. Let's talk." 2 days later, Sarah prepared for a reunion with her family at Blue Garden Cafe in the center of Oak Hill. She had secured a quiet table by the window and arrived a little early. Michael had offered to accompany her for support, but Sarah had told him this was something she needed to face alone. Her parents and Emily appeared 10 minutes after the scheduled time. All three looked tired, especially her mother, whose former elegance had receded and whose makeup was slightly disheveled. "Sarah," Margaret was the first to speak, "I'm glad you came." Sarah nodded calmly and urged the three to take their seats. After a waitress brought coffee, silence continued. "Well," Sarah quietly began, "tell me in detail what happened." Emily, with tears in her eyes, began speaking. James's mother suddenly came to visit. The house was messy and dinner wasn't prepared. She got angry and said, "Our son shouldn't be living like this." Her voice choked. James started blaming me too, saying, "Why can't you do anything when you have such a capable sister like Sarah?" Sarah quietly exhaled. "Is that why you called me?" "We should help each other as family," Robert said in a slightly strong tone. However, it wasn't his previous intimidating attitude, but had a somewhat pleading resonance. "Family," Sarah slowly repeated the word. "Since I left, I've been thinking about family, what family is, what it means to me." "You're our precious daughter," Margaret interrupted. "Come back home." Sarah shook her head. "I am not a servant." Her words were quiet but conveyed a strong will. "For 36 years, I put my own life on hold for the family. But that's over. If you're talking about that birthday present, that was a joke." Robert made an excuse. "A joke?" Sarah's voice rose slightly. "Do you understand how hurt I was?" But that was just the last drop. She took a deep breath and continued. "Dad, do you know how many years it's been since I graduated from college?" 16 years. During that time, I couldn't rent my own apartment, pursue my career, or seriously consider my relationship with Michael. "Do you know why?" Robert remained silent, averting his gaze. "Since I left home, for the first time, I felt the freedom to live my own life. For the first time, I could make my own choices without being bound by someone's expectations or demands." Sarah continued, suppressing her emotions. "Emily, you were always given special treatment. You were loved by our parents, but I wanted to be loved the same way." Tears fell from Emily's eyes. "I didn't know. I didn't realize," she said in a trembling voice, "how much you sacrificed, how much you did for us." "I understand now. We were terrible," Margaret quietly admitted. Regret was visible on her face. "We took it for granted your dedication." A heavy silence fell on the table. Robert stared at his coffee cup for a long time, and when he finally looked up, there were tears in his eyes. "Sarah, my daughter, I'm sorry." His voice was, "I was a terrible father. That joke wasn't really a joke. I treated you as a matter of course, my own daughter, almost like a servant." Sarah quietly completed the sentence. Robert nodded painfully. "Can you forgive me?" Sarah took a deep breath. In her heart were years of hurt and anger, but at the same time, a strong desire to move forward. "I can forgive," she said slowly, "but I won't go back to the old life. I have my own life." And if you want to be a family, I must be a cherished part of that family. Emily took her hand. Sarah, I'll change too. I want your help, but not help built on your sacrifice. I want us to support each other as sisters. For the first time, Sarah felt like she was being seen as a true member of the family. Tears welled up in her eyes too. Let's start a new relationship, Sarah said, equal and respectful of each other. A year of time flowed by, and many things changed. Are you ready? Michael appeared and placed his hand on Sarah's shoulder. A gold ring gleamed on his finger. 3 months ago, he had proposed to Sarah, and she had accepted without hesitation. Yes, Sarah smiled and returned from the balcony to the room. She now worked as a manager at the accounting firm and had been appointed as the person in charge of a new project. On the small table lay the company's internal newsletter, reporting her achievements. What time are your mom and dad coming? Michael asked, taking wine from the kitchen. 6. Emily and James are coming a little after that, Sarah answered calmly. Family relationships had been gradually repaired since that confrontation day. It was difficult at first, but through time, effort, and, most importantly, mutual understanding, a new relationship had been built. Robert and Margaret had changed significantly. Her father had started attending cooking classes and could now confidently make simple dishes. Her mother had found her own hobby and was active in the local reading club. The two had learned to share household chores and support each other. The doorbell rang, and when Sarah opened the door, her parents were standing there. In Robert's hands was a homemade apple pie. I baked it myself, he said, a little embarrassed, with extra cinnamon, the way you like it. Thank you, Papa. Sarah hugged her father. In his eyes was not the former arrogance, but gentleness and humility. Margaret handed Sarah a small package. For your new home, she said. Inside the box was a picture book Sarah had loved as a child. I want you to read it to your children too. After a while, Emily and James also arrived. Emily had a much more relaxed expression than before and held a salad bowl in her hands. I made it myself, she said proudly, the fruits of my cooking class. Sarah smiled. Emily and James's married life had a tumultuous beginning, but the two had learned to respect each other and now had built a good partnership. Emily continued her career at the high-end boutique while also taking on responsibilities at home. James shared in the housework, and their relationship had transformed into an equal one. With the whole family gathered around the table, Michael raised his glass. Let's make a toast. To new beginnings, everyone said in unison. The dinner conversation was bright and full of laughter. No one was sacrificing themselves anymore, nor was anyone getting special treatment. Each family member cherished their own life while supporting each other. As the night deepened and her parents prepared to leave, Robert quietly said to Sarah, "The day you left was a day of awakening for us, a painful awakening, but a necessary one." Sarah nodded. A family built on someone's sacrifice wasn't a real family. It's different now. Robert held his daughter's hand. Now we're a real family. Michael put his arm around Sarah's shoulder, and the two looked up at the night sky visible from the window. A new moon was gently shining. The former family servant was now living her own life and had become a member of a family bound by true bonds.